In Chapter 9 of my ebook, I show the construction of the chamfered post table. Starting on page 48, I step through the process of making the mortise and tenon joints. At this stage, say step 11 in the book, the model has rail and leg components, but no joints. In pulling out the front rail and the side rails, you can see that there are no tenons nor mortises. But before we start the joinery, notice that the legs are all one component called leg. Since the mortises will be different in the back leg versus the front, we need to create differentiating components. Right-click on the front leg and pick Explode from the menu. Now right-click on the leg again and pick Make Component. Name it Front Leg. We need to delete the other leg here and replace it later with a new front leg component. Right-click on the back leg and select Explode and make it a new component called back leg. Also delete the other leg in the back. Select the two new components, tap the Control key or Option on the Mac, and move the copies into the opposite position. Then flip along the red axis. Now to start the tenons. Pull a copy of the front rail out in front of the assembly. Place the guidelines to show the boundary of the tenon. Use the line tool to trace over the guidelines, but first put the component into the Edit Component mode. Trace over with the line tool and use the push-pull tool to pull the tenon out 11/16 inch long. Copy that tenon to the other end of the rail. Flip it along the red axis and pull it into connection here. We're missing a couple faces. We'll just repair those faces by drawing over a segment there and erasing that extra line. That also occurs on the bottom face of the tenon. Close the component and delete the guidelines. and delete the extra rail. Now that we have tenons, we can use them to make the mortises. But first, let's change a setting so that we can see the components more clearly in X-ray style. Click on Window, Model Info, and Components. And move these slider bars all the way to the right. This will help to show edges more clearly when we're using the X-ray mode. Turn on X-ray and zoom in close to the joint. Right-click on the leg component and select Edit Component. Pick the line tool and trace over the border of the tenon. Then pick the push-pull tool and pull out a mortise, or push out a mortise 3/4 of an inch long, deep. Now when I pull a copy of the leg out front, you can see the newly made mortise. Of course, the same mortise is automatically on the other front leg component. Let's pull out a back leg. Notice that there is no mortise here, which is what we want since we made no changes to the back leg. The same procedure applies for the mortise and tenon joint for the carcass sides. Place the guidelines in this case we've got some shoulders that are 3/4 of an inch down from the top, down from the up from the bottom. Use the line tool to trace over, but make sure to right-click on the component and put it into the edit mode. Then trace over with the line tool. Pull out the mortise, or the tenon, 11/16 inches. And copy this tenon to the other end of the side. Flip the tenon, bring it into position. and we're done with the tenons on the side component. Delete the guides and delete the extra side component. Now for the corresponding mortise in the front leg. Turn on X-ray again. Edit the leg component. Pick the line tool and trace over the intersection there. Use the push-pull tool and push out the mortise 3/4 of an inch deep. We also need a mortise in the back leg. We'll do that in the same way. Right-click on the back leg, edit component, pick the line tool, trace over the rectangle intersection there, and push-pull out the mortise 3/4 of an inch. Here you see that we've successfully made the mortise in the back leg. Continue this process for all of the mortise and tenon joints.